In 1988, after Richard Feynman died of cancer, a sealed envelope was found among his belongings. It had sat there untouched for 42 years. The handwriting on the front was careful, almost intimate. It was addressed to a woman who had been dead for over 4 decades. Her name was Arline. She was his wife. And the letter inside he had never sent. This is the story of the most rational man in physics and the impossible love letter he wrote to a ghost. Richard Feynman is one of the most famous physicists who ever lived. Nobel Prize winner, Manhattan Project insider. The man who cracked safes at Los Alamos for fun, played the bongos and figured out the Challenger disaster on live television. He was witty, curious, allergic to nonsense, and stubbornly rational. If something looked like mysticism, he tore it apart. If something looked sentimental, he laughed it off. But underneath the showman was a man holding one secret in a sealed envelope for almost half his life. To understand that letter, you have to go back to a beach in Far Rockaway, New York, in the early 1930s. Richard was a teenager, gawky, clever, obsessed with mathematics. He met a girl named Arline Greenbaum at a school dance. She was an artist. She loved philosophy and music and asked questions nobody else asked. They were opposites who fit together perfectly. He gave her science. She gave him art. They argued, they laughed, they wrote each other letters in code. By the time they were 19, they both knew they were going to spend their lives together. And then Arline got sick. It started slowly. A lump on her neck, strange fevers. Doctors guessed and contradicted each other. Eventually came the diagnosis Richard had been quietly dreading. Tuberculosis. In the 1940s, before antibiotics, this was almost always a death sentence. Arline had years, maybe months. Both families begged Richard to break off the engagement. He had a brilliant career ahead of him. Why marry a dying woman? Richard's answer was the most romantic thing he ever did, and he never made a big deal of it. He married her anyway in 1942 on a ferry, on the way to a hospital. By then, Richard had been recruited into a top-secret project in the New Mexico desert, the Manhattan Project, the program to build the atomic bomb. He moved to Los Alamos and placed Arline in a sanatorium a few hours away in Albuquerque. Every weekend, he hitchhiked or borrowed a car and drove to see her. He wrote her almost every day. He invented little games to make her laugh. He fought with the army censors who opened their mail. He was, by every account, an extraordinary husband. For a man who was simultaneously helping invent the most destructive weapon in human history. On June 16, 1945, Richard got a phone call at Los Alamos. Arline was dying. He borrowed a colleague's car and drove fast. He made it. He sat with her as she took her last breath at 9:21 in the evening. The clock in the hospital room had stopped at exactly that moment. A more sentimental man would have called it a sign. Richard, the physicist, calmly noted that the clock had been fragile and somebody had probably nudged it while recording the time of death. He wrote one word in his notebook, death. Then he went back to work. He didn't cry, not for weeks, not for months. He told friends he was surprised at himself. Then, one afternoon in Oak Ridge, he walked past a department store window and saw a dress Arline would have loved, and only then did he break. More than a year later, on October 17, 1946, Richard sat down at his desk. It would have been their 4th wedding anniversary. He picked up a pen, and he wrote her a letter. He told her he adored her. He told her he wanted to comfort her, take care of her, do little projects with her, the way they always had. He confessed something strange. In the months since she had died, he had met other women, some kind, some lovely. None of them felt real to him. They turned to ashes. Only Arline was real. He admitted he didn't fully understand what it meant to love someone who was dead, but he knew that he did, and that he probably always would. And then, at the end, he wrote one line, just 5 small words. the most devastating sentence a physicist ever wrote about love. I love my wife. My wife is dead. And then came the postscript, the kind of postscript only Richard Feynman could write. He apologized to Arline. He said he was sorry he wasn't mailing the letter. The reason was simple, almost a joke, except it broke your heart. He didn't know where to send it. He didn't have her new address. Then he folded the letter, slid it into an envelope, sealed it, and put it away. He never opened it again. He went on to become one of the most celebrated scientists of the 20th century. He won the Nobel Prize in physics. He remarried twice. He wrote best-selling books. He delivered lectures that physics students still memorize today. And in all that time, in all those decades of fame and laughter and family and applause, the letter stayed sealed. He never spoke about it. He never showed anyone. It was only after his death in 1988, when the writer James Gleick was researching a biography, that the envelope was finally opened, and the world read what the most rational physicist of his generation had written, alone at his desk, to his dead wife, knowing no one would ever see it. So why didn't he send it? Maybe because he knew there was no one to receive it. Maybe because writing it was never about her reading it. Maybe because some part of him, the part he had spent a lifetime laughing off, needed to keep talking to the only person he had ever truly loved. Feynman believed in physics, atoms, particles, hard, cold, measurable reality. He didn't believe in heaven. He didn't believe in souls. He didn't believe in ghosts. But for one quiet evening in 1946, alone at his desk, he wrote a letter to one anyway. And that's the thing about even the most rational mind in the world. Sometimes love doesn't care whether you believe in it. It just stands there, in your way, refusing to move. If this story moved you, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories at the strange intersection of physics and being human. Thank you for watching.